All right, I'm back. So from Peppermint, we went with Gary Del Vecchio and his wife Linda to a place called Westside Bowl, which is a bowling alley, a bar, restaurant, and and a live music venue. Not terribly dissimilar from Permanent Records Roadhouse, but with bowling and an arcade and all this other stuff and a restaurant. We're just a bar, a live music venue, and a record store. And inside Westside Bowl is a record store called Cycle Breakers Records. And they are called that, according to one of the owners that I talked to, because they wanted to break the ugly cycle of competition among record collectors. And I really appreciated that, even though the majority of us, there's camaraderie and we get along and we trade and the vibes are generally pretty amicable. Sometimes things can get a little contentious, when somebody has a record that two different record collectors want. There can be arguing and just kind of backstabbing and just really terrible behavior that comes out of it. And that's really kind of an unfortunate side effect of record collecting and these kind of collectible grails and things. Just go watch what's the Indiana Jones and the Search for the Holy Grail, or whatever the title of that is, to see how terrible trying to track down a holy grail can end up if you don't do it right. So anyway, yeah, we're at Cycle Breakers Records inside Westside Bowl in Youngstown, and I traded some records with the owner. We swapped stories and then hit the road. Before I move on, I would like to mention that I didn't pick up a whole lot of really interesting local stuff that I didn't already have in Youngstown, but I did pick up this later left end 10-inch, which is pretty cool, from Sonny at Underdog Records. I already had all the 45s and the LP&Os, missing that one. So we left after dinner and drove to Pittsburgh and made it just in time. No, I guess we didn't. We left after lunch, made it just in time for dinner with Tara's family. I hope this video isn't terribly boring for you. I'm gonna just motor right through some of this stuff. And we had dinner with her family, played with the guinea pigs. I love Pittsburgh. I think it's a really, really charming and beautiful working class city. The food and the bars are amazing there. They have Arsenal cider, which is incredible. Some of our favorite haunts are like Dee's Six Pack of Dogs, Napoli's Pizza, Coriander, which is a great Indian food joint, Mad Mex, Gooski's, and Brillo Box, and there's so many great bars and live music venues. I could go on and on, but one of my favorite parts of Pittsburgh is Pittsburghese, and if you aren't already familiar with it in that, I highly recommend Googling Pittsburghese right now and going down that rabbit hole. I don't have time to go through that in this particular video, but it is a wild, not only accent, but a full vocabulary of words unique to Pittsburghers. So anyway, while we were there, I saw this really cool RIP RVZ personalized vanity license plate with a Leonard Skinner license plate holder, which, as you know now, I am a huge Southern rock guy, and I have a very, very fond affinity for Leonard Skinner. RIP RVZ. And the first stop the next morning was at Fungus Books and Records. I don't recall if we met with Mikey, the owner. He's a good friend of ours, but he used to own a store called Mind Cure. They also had a record label. I think we ran into our buddy Ian working that day. Yeah, and I don't recall if we bought anything there, but that's a great shop and I highly recommend it. It's very well curated, lots of killer records, lots of jazz, good amount of punk, and other very desirable records. Very small but highly curated selection, and they also have a ton of books, which I don't know enough about to say much of anything about, but I do know how to read, believe it or not, And the books that they do have do look appealing. I just don't collect books. It's not the kind of thing that I do. All the books that I read are pretty, almost all of them are music related, and you know, they're dealing more in art books and like esoteric, you know, what's the word for it, like occult things and whatnot, you know, just stuff that's like a little more highbrow than I generally get into, especially this day and age. I used to be a little more pretentious and pompous and interesting than I am now. I'm pretty white bread at this point. But anyway, next stop was at the Attic in Millville. Our buddies Fred, Max, Stripey, Tony, we love those guys at the Attic, and those guys are also super supportive of the Brown Acid compilation series. And Max is a very heavy 45 collector there. Fred, the owner, is like a total sweetheart and a through and through yinzer, if you know what I mean. He's got the thick Pittsburghese accent and uses all of the aforementioned vocabulary, and he's really great. He's very knowledgeable and knows a ton about music and records. I highly recommend going to the Attic in Millville. Did I get any of these at the Attic? Maybe. I don't think so. I bought a lot of records at the Attic over the years. I don't think I got anything there this time. But after I traded a 45 with Max and sold them some Brown Acid and related releases, we cruised on over to the Government Center. The owner of that's a great shop, and the owner of the Government Center, Josh, is a super, super sweet guy. He's always hooking us up with boxes if we need to ship things back from our trips to Pittsburgh. And he and I talked shop and traded some Brown Acid releases for some other things he had there in the shop. I think one of the things I picked up there, and this might have been the only thing I picked up there, was this Gil Scott-Heron, Pieces of a Man. So this will eventually go into the shop. I got a pretty reasonable deal on that. I think this is a very collectible record at this point. So anyway, that's that. From Government Center, where did we go? Oh, we went to Pleasant Dreams Record. That's a cool store. They have almost all used records and a lot of private pressings, which is very appealing to me. I've purchased things from them in the past. Didn't pick anything up this time, even though they did have an OG copy of Dead Man by Josephus playing while we were there. It was not for sale. Luckily, I already have one, so it's okay. And then what did we do? We went back to Swissvale, which is a really great hilly neighborhood and the home of Vinyl Man Records. So Jerry's Records is and was a Pittsburgh institution, and Jerry Weber owned that store. He sold it a while back, and unfortunately he passed away a few years ago. His son Willie owns this massive warehouse in Swissvale, filled to the brim with records, multiple floors, shelving forever. It's unbelievable how many records there are. There has to be 1 million or so records, maybe more. It's definitely hundreds of thousands, if not more. So anyway, we always go and visit with Willie. Willie's an amazing guy. He's super fun, also really knowledgeable. And yeah, we generally buy a whole lot of records from him. He, understands that we are buying in most cases to resell, and will cut us a little bit of a deal, which is really nice when we buy in bulk. And I also, on this trip, traded Brown Acid, you guessed it, again, Brown Acid records with Willie at Vinyl Man. So I think they have like kind of a members only kind of situation. You might have to have a membership to shop there. I don't know what the current state of affairs is at Vinyl Man, but it's a cool shop. And if you find yourself in Swissvale, I highly recommend checking it out. Say hi to Willie for us, okay? All right, so then after that, we went to the OG Jerry's Records, which is now owned by a gentleman named Chris. I traded some Brown Acid with him. Actually, you know what I think? If I'm not mistaken, I picked up these WDVE comps from Willie's. I don't remember. Whatever. Kind of doesn't matter. where did I get things and what didn't I get from Willie's versus Jerry's. Kind of not inconsequential for this video. Anyway, I love these these local radio station compilations. They did so many radio stations did these. A beer brand, I think it was Miller or somebody. I'll tell the story on this whole deal at some point, but when I'm traveling, I like to bring home a lot of records you can almost exclusively find in the places that you're in. And these two comps, especially the first volume of WDVE Pittsburgh Rocks comps, are very cool. There's a track on this one, Sugarcane, What You Do to Me, is on the first volume. That's a really cool track, and the 45 is hundreds of dollars. It's a really expensive one. This is really cheap, as you can see. I got this one for $5, and they're everywhere in Pittsburgh. It's crazy how common this record is there. It must have sold like hotcakes. And there's also a cool hard rock thing on here by a band called Wizard. Track's called Blind Man. So I try to get as many of those as I can when I'm in that neck of the woods. Oh, just to rewind, here are a couple of the private pressings that I picked up at Cycle Breakers in Youngstown. This is a cool Christian hard rock record by a band called The Excursions. It's not great all the way through, but the highlights on this thing are exceptionally amazing. And this is a really wild, kind of synthy, I wouldn't call it disco. It's just an experimental, like dark, minimal synth record. I forget the backstory of Sean Daniel Foreman, but he was homosexual and, I don't remember. Can't remember the backstory. Doesn't matter. This is a really cool record. I highly recommend checking this out if you're into the, dark. If you like records with synthesizers all over them, then this is for you. And go preview the track Master of the Universe from this, if that looks intriguing to you. And if it doesn't, check your pulse, because that's exactly what you're looking for when it comes to private pressings. All right, so as I mentioned before, we were at Jerry's, did some trading there. Got this Sonny Sherrick Black Woman. That's a white label promo. Got this fairly inexpensive but super interesting Todd Clark group. Todd Tamminen Clark did some kind of chromey sounding like psychedelic punk, really outsider, real people experimental stuff in the 70s and 80s. Highly recommend that. We also got this Cy Timon, the world's greatest unknown. This is a really cool album. Mostly singer-songwriter, but it has some kind of unexpected moments on it. And it comes in this denim pocket, oversized denim pocket jacket, which is really, really cool. I picked that up there. This is also an exceptional record. Picked this up at Jerry's. These were not inexpensive, by the way, but Chris is a very reasonable guy. And, when you're spending a significant amount of money and things have been sitting on the wall for a while, he will work out a deal. This is Ramp. If you like Roy Ayers, you're already familiar with this album. That's a really killer jazz funk album. And then I think I picked this up. This was at Final Man. This, again, when in Rome, pick up the records you can only get in Rome. And, the Central Catholic High School Spring Music Festival from 1968 with Jerry's handwriting on the poly bag. I had to bring that home with me. I don't think it's especially interesting, but it is, local to Pittsburgh, and you're probably not going to see that outside of that city. All right, so yeah, we're at Chris's, traded some records, bought some wall records, and then we went down to the strip district. We got, in the strip district, you're seeing that's downtown Pittsburgh. It's where the three rivers kind of intersect. It's a really, really picturesque part of the city. We got a cappuccino, bought some pasta from an Italian grocery store for Tara's parents. I bought my first terrible towel. I wish I had it right here with me. I do not. I could use it to dab the sweat off my forehead. It's extremely hot in LA still. Very, very warm for mid-October. But anyway, we walked by Lucky's. Lucky's is this cool gay bar that is on a piece of land where everything outside of it has been sold and demolished, and its walls are bare on either side, and they are just holding strong. They're just a, you know, very, it's like a sore thumb just standing out there on its own. It's awesome, and I've heard nothing but good things about that place. Tara's been there a bunch of times. Unfortunately, they weren't open while we were there. You, in the Strip District, can see a whole bunch of Pittsburgh's famous bridges. Town known for hills and bridges and tunnels. Really, really great city. I love it. Overall, great trip. We saw a whole bunch of friends and family. Had an amazing time. Bought a handful of records. There's a few more private pressings in this crate that I don't have time to show right now. So we'll show those in another video. We got back in LA just in time to set up for an intimate rooftop show with Shannon Lay. She's an amazing local singer-songwriter. If you like Sandy Denny and Joni Mitchell and who else? I don't know. Sybil Bear. Check out Shannon Lay. She's a really, really talented songwriter. She used to play in this really great rock band called Feels that had albums on Castle Face, but now she's solo and killing it. Her records are coming out on Sub Pop now. She's Woodsist, and this video is not about Shannon. Hi Shannon, if you're watching. Anyway, my name's Lance. I went on a road trip and shared the story, and I was very long-winded about it. I hope you're still tuned in. If not, that's okay. We'll do another video again soon, and we'll be a little more succinct about it. Until then, y'all, take care. Drive safe.